Welcome to this module for Embracing Diversity. In this module, you will review some basic information about embracing diversity. You will also hear about the rationale behind embracing diversity. Then, you will learn a bit about common ways to tailor treatment to be more responsive to a client's identities, beliefs, and values. Next, you will hear about how embracing diversity can be useful for various people. Finally, you will hear specific examples of embracing diversity in practice. As a review, embracing diversity is about how we can adapt the process and content of therapeutic approaches according to various characteristics, such as age, gender, race, ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, primary language, and service setting. Embracing diversity is useful because it encourages a broad conceptualization of diversity that includes client and family characteristics, context, and service features. It also prompts consideration of a broad array of dimensions along which to adapt, customize, or individualize services, and it represents categories for adapting services that may be helpful for organizing decisions about how to adapt treatment. Finally, it has the potential to preserve the features of the original intervention. Additionally, as a review, embracing diversity involves consideration of how to tailor services to improve, fit with diverse clients and contexts. One way to tailor services is to adapt the therapy process, or how you work with a client. Common process adaptations include changing how you behave with a client, how you deliver a message to a client, and who is involved in treatment. Another way to tailor services is to adapt the therapy content, or what you work on with a client. Common content adaptations include changing how information is framed, what you say to a client, and what you ask a client to do. Thus, the Embracing Diversity Guide is focused on adapting the ways providers talk about or deliver the intervention, rather than adapting or changing the intervention itself. It is important to keep in mind what embracing diversity is not: a comprehensive approach to diversity, a framework for deciding when to respond to diversity or not, a statement of competency, nor a definitive solution for adapting treatment. Now that we've reviewed some basic information about embracing diversity, you might be wondering why it is important. Let's briefly discuss the rationale behind embracing diversity. Although many of the basic treatment procedures embedded in treatments supported by research are grounded in theories tested across culture, time, and even species, the scientific testing of the procedures has occurred primarily in the last half a century and has been primarily examined among people from Western, educated, industrialized, and democratic societies. This has changed in recent years, with more clinical trials focused on examining the effectiveness of treatments among diverse youth and families and in diverse settings. Fortunately, interventions supported by research are often effective for clients seen in traditional mental health settings, even if the intervention was not designed for individuals with similar characteristics. That said, some clients may be unresponsive to these interventions and may benefit from adapting the process or content of services to better meet their needs. For example, in the Hawaiian culture, there is often a strong sense of duty to support one's ohana. Ohana in the Hawaiian language refers to a person's extended family, which can include cousins, aunties and uncles, friends, neighbors, and other social support groups. Accordingly, some clients may benefit from having their ohana involved in treatment. In fact, in a study that tested the effects of multisystemic therapy and evidence-based treatment with youth from Hawaii, researchers identified that involving a client's ohana in treatment increased cultural responsiveness of treatment and facilitated progress towards treatment goals. Clients may benefit from adaptations that consider their unique characteristics. In her well-known book on cultural complexity, author Pamela Hayes offered one way to remember many, but not all, of these characteristics through the acronym of ADDRESSING: age, development, acquired disabilities, religion and spiritual orientation, ethnic and racial identity, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, indigenous heritage, national origin, and gender. When indicated, such as when a client is not progressing as expected with a standard course of treatment, there can be several benefits for adapting the process or content of services. Specifically, experts in culture and mental health have long proposed the adaptations can increase treatment utilization, reduce premature termination, and alleviate mental health symptoms. For example, in one study, researchers found that matching clients with providers of the same ethnicity, or adapting the process of services, led to improvements in functioning. Additionally, in another study, researchers found that framing a client's problems in a culturally congruent manner, or attending to the content of services, improved therapeutic alliance. At the same time, it is important to note that when adaptations are used but are not indicated, such as when services are adapted despite the client progressing as expected with a standard course of treatment, such adaptations could be inefficient. For instance, many studies have shown that culturally adapted treatments yield similar client outcomes as standard evidence-based treatments, and a few studies suggest that conceptually appealing but untested modifications can lead to worse outcomes than standard treatments. Accordingly, embracing diversity can help you be thoughtful about how to adapt treatment, when indicated, by providing ideas supported by research for how to adapt the process or content of services. Although embracing diversity does not specifically tell you when adaptations are needed, consistent with an evidence-informed approach to services, you would use data or evidence to help identify the circumstances under which adaptations might be indicated. For example, you might consider evidence about a youth's or family's engagement in services or their treatment progress. Concerns about engagement or progress might suggest that adaptations should be considered. Now that you understand the rationale behind embracing diversity, let's take a look at common types of adaptations. There are two common types of adaptations represented in embracing diversity: process adaptations and content adaptations. Process adaptations refer to how you work with your client, whereas content adaptations refer to what you work on with your client. Let's go through some examples of process adaptations. As mentioned, one way to tailor services to fit diverse characteristics of clients and contexts is to adapt process, or how you work with the youth and family. Common process adaptations may include modifications of style, communication, or agents participating in the change process. Style refers to how you behave with your client. For example, some clients may feel more comfortable if their therapy involves warm, informal, or personalized interactions. Some clients may view their provider as the expert and may respond better to directive statements such as, "Let's have you try that step now." Other clients may view collaborating with their provider about treatment decisions to be a sign of respect and may prefer for their provider to use non-directive queries, such as, "Would you like to try this step?" Clients may also have differing preferences about eye contact. For example, a client who identifies with an East Asian culture may perceive a provider making substantial eye contact to be angry or unpleasant, whereas a client who identifies with North American or Western European cultures may perceive a provider making substantial eye contact to be approachable. Another way to tailor the process of services is to adapt your communication. Communication refers to how you deliver the message. For example, some clients may appreciate the use of stories, narratives, games, or vignettes that incorporate aspects of their identity, beliefs, and values. Other clients may prefer an educational or teaching format, which may decrease the stigma of psychotherapy. For clients who have a different preferred or native language, treatment handouts or worksheets may need to be translated for them to reap the full benefits of treatment. Relatedly, some clients may benefit from an adapted communication format. As an example, clients who have difficulty seeing or reading written text may require information to be presented orally. A third way to tailor the process of services is to adapt the change agent. Change agent refers to who is involved in treatment. For example, some clients may benefit from having their extended family involved in treatment. For instance, as noted earlier, for clients who identify with Hawaiian culture, involving their extended ohana may be indicated. Some clients may benefit from including peers in the treatment process to help clients practice skills outside of therapy sessions. Some clients may feel more comfortable working with a provider whose background or language skills matches theirs. Other clients may want a provider with a different background than theirs for fear of being judged by someone in their same racial, ethnic, gender, or religious group. Consulting with a relevant expert may also be indicated when working with some clients whose characteristics are unfamiliar to you. Now that we have discussed some process adaptations, let's go through some examples of content adaptations. Another way to tailor services to fit diverse characteristics of clients and contexts is to adapt content, or what you work on with your client. Common content adaptations may include modifications of conceptualization, message, or procedures. Conceptualization refers to how information is framed. For example, for some clients, you may want to reframe the rationale behind treatment, such as by framing therapy as a way to build competencies, rather than to reduce dysfunction. Relatedly, you might find that altering how you frame the root of a problem could be helpful. For instance, presenting a medical model explanation for substance use, where the emphasis is on how the condition is inherited, as opposed to a weakness of will, might resonate with some families, and allow them to be more understanding and forgiving of a family member struggling to gain sobriety. Alternatively, for some clients, you may decide to specify how treatment will encourage family value. As an example, for a Latino family, you could explain how therapy could encourage familismo, or the importance of strong family loyalty, closeness, and getting along with and contributing to the well-being of the nuclear and extended family. Another way to tailor the content of services is to adapt the message. Message refers to what you say to a client without necessarily changing what you mean. For example, you may consider referring to therapy as an educational program or referring to a therapist as a teacher to decrease stigma for psychotherapy. Using the client's own language to describe their problems, such as using the term nerves to describe anxiety. Or using culturally relevant names, labels, sayings, or pictures. For instance, the name for the Grady Nia Project, which aims to empower abused, suicidal African American women, was derived from the term Nia, the principle of Kwanzaa that means purpose. A third way to tailor the content of services is to adapt the procedures. Procedures refer to what you ask your client to do. For example, you may decide to try a new therapy practice. As an example, clients who identify as spiritual may benefit from incorporating prayer into treatment to provide an opportunity for clients to express their feelings. Alternatively, you may decide to extend or condense the pacing of practices. For instance, clients with developmental disabilities may benefit from having sessions that are temporarily closer together to better retain information from one session to the next. You may also consider adjusting the sequencing of therapy practices, such as skipping practices with a client who has had multiple treatment episodes. Now that you've heard about common types of adaptations, let's take a look at how embracing diversity can be useful for various people. Embracing diversity is useful for people in various roles. Embracing diversity can be useful for providers who may want to consider how to adapt services if a client is not progressing as expected with a standard course of treatment. Embracing diversity can prompt providers to assess whether their client is making the expected clinical progress. It can also encourage providers to consider their clients' unique identities, as well as how their clients' backgrounds, beliefs, and values may influence treatment. Additionally, embracing diversity can offer ideas for how to adapt the process or content of treatment to better meet their clients' needs. Embracing diversity can also be useful for supervisors. It can prompt supervision discussions about clients' identities and how treatment can be adapted to be more relevant to their characteristics. It can also promote supervisor and supervisee reflection about their own identities and how their backgrounds, beliefs, and values may influence treatment and supervision. Additionally, embracing diversity can help supervisors use a parallel process as providers may use with their clients to improve the fit of supervision to a supervisee's characteristics. Specifically, it can prompt supervisors to assess whether a supervisee is performing as expected or whether supervision is functioning as expected. It can also encourage supervisors to consider their supervisee's unique identities, as well as how their supervisee's backgrounds, beliefs, and values may influence their treatment delivery. It can then offer ideas for how to adapt the process or content of supervision to better meet supervisee's needs. For example, a supervisor could consider making a style adaptation of using more self-disclosure with a supervisee who presents as professional but distant in supervision. Embracing diversity can also be useful for system administrators. It can prompt system administrators to assess whether services are functioning as expected. Embracing diversity can also encourage system administrators to consider their unique identities of their service population and staff, as well as how the backgrounds, beliefs, and values of their service population and staff may influence services. Additionally, embracing diversity can offer ideas for how to adapt the process or content of services to better meet the needs of their service population and staff. For example, embracing diversity could facilitate a process where a system administrator notices that many clients have been in therapy for a considerable amount of time, but have made little to no progress. After discussing this issue with several supervisors, the system administrator and these supervisors could determine that there are a substantial number of families at their agency whose native language is Korean. Speculating that these families might benefit from working with a provider who speaks their native language, the system administrator could then consider making the change agent adaptation of hiring some providers who are bilingual in English and Korean. Now, let's take a look at some examples of how a provider might go about embracing diversity when working with a youth. Meet Maggie and her mother. Maggie is a 7-year-old girl who has been struggling with depression and disruptive behavior problems. Maggie's mother reports that Maggie is irritable, cries almost every day, and is no longer interested in playing with her favorite toys or with her friends. Maggie has also been non-compliant with her mother's requests and has been picking fights with her younger sister. Maggie's mother shares that Maggie is usually a sweet girl who is well liked by other kids at her school and in their neighborhood. Tanya is working with Maggie and her mother. Tanya has been working with them for the past 2 months and has been targeting Maggie's disruptive behavior problems. In their last session, Tanya introduced the practice of rewards and suggested Maggie's mother should provide Maggie with small things she likes when she demonstrates compliant behaviors. However, Maggie's mother expressed concerns about implementing a rewards system. She shared that she does not want Maggie to be spoiled and that Maggie needs to learn that life is hard. Maggie's mother also expressed that money is tight and that they cannot afford to buy rewards right now. The following examples will focus on how embracing diversity can help Tanya tailor treatment to better fit this family's beliefs and values. In this example, Tanya decides to adapt who is involved in treatment. Thank you for sharing your concerns about setting up a reward system in our last session. Many parents have shared similar concerns with me, and what I've seen is that when rewards are used, behaviors tend to improve. Would you be willing to try them out? Maggie's mother responds, I'm still not sure. I don't know. It's been hard just to make ends meet, and I don't want to be spending money on bribes for things she should already be doing. Tanya says, I hear you. What if we have Grandma buy rewards for Maggie? That way, Maggie can still be rewarded when she follows directions, and it's no money out of your pocket. Maggie's mother shares, I don't want to ask my mom to buy things for Maggie either. If I'm going to ask my mom for money, it's going to be for shoes or school supplies for the kids, not ice cream. Tanya, nodding, then says, Oh, I see your point. Rewards don't have to be that expensive. A good reward could be a glittery pencil or a cool eraser. Maggie's mother shuts down and says, I still don't feel comfortable asking her for this. Tanya responds, okay, well, let's think about this some more and see if we can come up with an idea for how to reward Maggie, such as with time spent together doing something easy, fun, and free. This example needs improvement. Tanya identified how she could modify the change agent, or who was involved in treatment, and she also tried to have Maggie's mother consider rewards that were inexpensive or free, which is a good start. However, she made assumptions about this family and about how treatment could be best adapted. Maggie's mother might have been more receptive to Tanya's suggestion of involving Grandma if Tanya had involved Maggie's mother in discussion about others who might be able to help with the reward system. For instance, Tanya could have said, I respect your decision. Who else in Maggie's life might be willing to provide small rewards for improving her behavior? Tanya's attempt to tailor treatment could have also been improved by trying another adaptation when faced with Maggie's mother's concerns, rather than dropping the plan completely. For example, Tanya could have reframed the objective of the practice of rewards to Maggie's mother, or adapted the conceptualization, if her first adaptation was unsuccessful, by saying, rather than giving Maggie rewards, how would you feel if she would need to work to earn her rewards? In the second example, Tanya decides to adapt the conceptualization, or how information is framed, but brings the family into the discussion rather than making assumptions. In response to the concerns expressed by Maggie's mother, Tanya says, thank you for sharing your concerns about setting up a reward system in our last session. Maggie's mother states, I just don't think it will be helpful to give Maggie presents for things that she should already be doing. Tanya responds, that makes sense, and I can see why you would be concerned that using rewards could make it seem like life is easy. Maggie's mother expresses, it's just that you never get things in life, you know? You have to work really hard and earn them. Even then, sometimes things don't work out. Tanya says, yes, and I can see the value of teaching your daughter how to keep going when life gets tough. I was thinking, rather than giving rewards to Maggie, what do you think about making her earn them? I like that better. It's like what would happen with a job, although it will still be difficult for me to regularly buy her rewards, notes Maggie's mother. Tanya suggests, maybe we can problem solve that. This example is almost there. Tanya adapts the conceptualization, or how she frames the practice of rewards to Maggie's mother, to be more consistent with the family's beliefs and values. This seems to make Maggie's mother more receptive to the practice of rewards. However, Tanya still considers only one type of adaptation, and, as noted by Maggie's mother, adapting the message is not sufficient for addressing all of her concerns with the practice of rewards. Tanya might have more success if she considers more types of adaptations, and then chooses one or more adaptations that are aligned with the family's beliefs and values. For instance, when Maggie's mother still expresses concerns about setting up a reward system, Tanya could propose that they think about other ways to help Maggie feel better and follow directions more. Building on example 2, Tanya considers more ways that she can adapt treatment to better fit the family's beliefs and values. She has already brainstormed that she could adapt the conceptualization, or how information is framed, by reinforcing the family's value that good things are earned, not just given. Another content adaptation could be to tailor the message, or what she says to Maggie's mom. For instance, she could say that rewards are given for hard work, rather than for good behavior. She could also adapt the procedure, or what she asks the family to do. Rather than asking Maggie's mother to implement a reward system, Tanya could teach Maggie's mother how to praise Maggie's good behavior. Tanya could also adapt the treatment process. For example, she could tailor her style, or how she behaves with the family, by assuming a Socratic approach instead of a directive approach. In other words, rather than instructing this family to implement a reward system, Tanya could ask what has worked well for other families in their neighborhood. She could tailor her communication, or how she delivers the message to the family, by using videos rather than teaching. For example, Tanya could show a video of a child following his mother's instructions to set the table, and subsequently being rewarded with 10 minutes of playtime before dinner. She could then ask Maggie's mother for her thoughts about the video. Lastly, Tanya could adapt the change agent, or who is involved in treatment. Since we already know that Maggie's mother is reluctant to ask her mom for help with rewarding Maggie, Tanya could inquire whether there are other family members, friends, or community support groups like their church that might be able to help with purchasing or donating small rewards. After considering these various types of adaptations, Tanya decides to adapt the procedure. She believes that switching from the practice of rewards to praise will address Maggie's mother's financial concerns. Tanya also thinks that Maggie's mother may be more receptive to praising good behaviors than rewarding good behaviors. Further, Tanya considers her interactions with Maggie's mother so far, and she thinks that Maggie's mother will be more receptive if she uses a Socratic style as she introduces the new procedure. In response to Maggie's mother's concerns, Tanya says, "Thank you for sharing your concerns about setting up a reward system in our last session." Maggie's mother elaborates, "I just don't think it will be helpful to give Maggie presents for things that she should already be doing." Tanya responds, "That makes sense. We can try something else to improve Maggie's behaviors. To figure out what might be helpful for Maggie, I wonder what has been helpful for you when you have been asked to do things that you do not want to do." Tanya proceeds, "Can you think of the best manager you've ever had?" Maggie's mother says, "Okay, I have someone in mind." Tanya continues, "Good. What was that manager like?" Maggie's mother describes, "Well, she was very supportive. She would always ask how I was doing and how Maggie was liking school. She was really clear about what she wanted done and about what I was supposed to be doing. She also told me when I was doing a good job." Tanya asks, "What would she say to you when you were doing a good job?" Maggie's mother responds, "Oh, she would say things like, 'I really appreciate that you did that task,' or 'You did a great job today.'" Tanya then says, "I can see why you liked working for that manager. When she praised you, what impact did that have on your work?" Maggie's mother considers this for a moment. Then she replies, "I never thought about it before, but I guess it made me want to work harder for her. It felt good to know that she noticed how hard I was working." Tanya then returns to a focus on Maggie and asks her mother, "I'm wondering, how do you think Maggie might feel if you told her that she did a good job when completing her chores?" Maggie's mother responds, "I see what you mean. I think she would probably like it, just like I do." Tanya agrees and says, "I think she would like it too, and maybe she will be motivated to work harder for you, just like you were motivated to work harder for your manager." This is a great example of embracing diversity. Tanya appreciated that Maggie's mother had concerns about the treatment plan and determined that the family could benefit from treatment being adapted. Next, she considered how she might adapt the treatment process, such as the style, communication, or change agent. She also considered how she could adapt the treatment content, or the conceptualization, message, or procedures. She then selected an adaptation that she perceived to best address the family's concerns, and she introduced the new procedure while also adapting her style, using a Socratic approach. Now let's take a look at some more examples about how a provider might go about embracing diversity. Meet Alejandra and her mother. Alejandra is a 5-year-old Mexican-American girl who has been having separation anxiety. Alejandra's mother reports that Alejandra has been refusing to go to school and cries when she is dropped off at her kindergarten classroom. Alejandra's mother shares that Alejandra has also been waking up multiple times throughout the night and saying that she is scared. As a result, Alejandra has been allowed to spend the rest of the night in her mother's bed. Alejandra's mother states that when she asks Alejandra what she is scared of, Alejandra says that she is worried that something bad will happen to her mother. Alejandra's mother shares that Alejandra is a good student and is very polite to others. She says that Alejandra is bilingual in English and Spanish and explains that they usually speak Spanish at home. Michelle is working with Alejandra. Michelle just completed an intake assessment with Alejandra and her mother and has started to provide some psychoeducation about separation anxiety and its effective treatment. In their last session, Michelle introduced how exposure therapy could help with Alejandra's separation anxiety. Michelle explained that encouraging Alejandra to go to school and return to her own bed at night can ultimately help Alejandra feel better about being away from her mother. Alejandra's mother is concerned with this treatment approach and believes that Alejandra will feel as though her mother does not love her anymore. The following examples will focus on how embracing diversity can help Michelle tailor treatment to better meet Alejandra and her mother's needs. In this example, Michelle decides to adapt the change agent. Alejandra's mother shares, "I thought more about what you said, and I don't want to make Alejandra feel uncomfortable. I want to try something else." Michelle responds, "Yes, it's true that this treatment will put Alejandra out of her comfort zone a bit, but that is also why it is really effective at helping kids just like Alejandra. I wonder if you'd consider trying it out." Alejandra's mother asserts, "No, I really don't feel comfortable putting her in situations that I know are going to upset her." Michelle, feeling anxious and a bit frustrated, says, "I don't think that I'm explaining this so that you fully understand. Let me see if there's someone available who can relay what I'm saying in Spanish." This example needs improvement. Michelle identified how she could modify the change agent, or who is involved in treatment, which is a good start. However, she assumed that Alejandra's mother's concerns about the treatment plan stemmed from language barriers. If Alejandra's mother's reluctance about the treatment plan was related to miscommunications as a result of language barriers, then recruiting an interpreter may be helpful. If, however, her reluctance was not associated with language-related miscommunications, then recruiting an interpreter may be a misstep. In this way, embracing diversity helps providers to avoid stereotypes and generalizations, and instead encourages a broader look at various factors that could be impeding progress. In this case, it would have been helpful for Michelle to learn more about Alejandra's mother's concerns before deciding how to adapt treatment. For instance, rather than suggesting the use of an interpreter, Michelle should have responded by saying something like, "I definitely don't want to make Alejandra upset for no reason, but I'm hearing you say that you would like Alejandra to be more engaged in school and spend more time in her own bed, and I want to figure out a way that we can make that happen. Most people, including kids, do not like change, so I think you're right that Alejandra may not be the biggest fan of some of these changes, but I'm wondering what parts of this plan are not sitting right with you." In this example, Michelle decides to adapt the message, or what she says to Alejandra's mother, but only after learning more about her concerns. She says, "I'm wondering what parts of this plan are not sitting right with you." Alejandra's mother responds, "I just worry what Alejandra will think if I just force her to go to school or go back to her bed at night. She calms down a lot when she is with me, and I would feel like a bad mother if I just ignore her feelings." Michelle then says, "That makes a lot of sense. I know you care about her a lot, and it is hard to watch someone we care about be so upset. I'm wondering what you think about helping Alejandra develop her confidence so she can feel calm in situations without needing someone else to help her." Alejandra's mother nods and says, "I think that would be good." This example is almost there. Michelle noticed that Alejandra's mother was concerned about the treatment plan, assessed Alejandra's mother's concerns, and decided to adapt treatment to address those concerns. However, Michelle still only considered one type of adaptation. Although adapting the message seemed like a promising option, Michelle limits her potential success by immediately selecting and implementing an adaptation. If time allowed, Michelle might have been better served by considering multiple types of adaptations and then selecting one to implement. Building on example 2, Michelle considers more ways that she can adapt treatment to respond to Alejandra's mother's concerns about the treatment plan. She has already brainstormed that she could adapt the change agent, or who is involved in treatment, by recruiting an interpreter. She has also considered how she could adapt the message, or what she says to the client, by stating that the therapy will help Alejandra develop confidence, so she can feel calm in situations without needing someone else to help her. Michelle could also adapt her style, or how she behaves with the family, by taking a client-directed approach. Another process adaptation could be to tailor her communication, or how she delivers the message to the family. For example, Michelle could give an informational handout about exposure therapy to Alejandra's mother to take home and review as she thinks about her daughter's treatment. Alternatively, Michelle could adapt the conceptualization, or how the information is framed. For instance, rather than framing exposure therapy as tolerating uncomfortable situations, Michelle could emphasize how exposure therapy helps clients build confidence and learn that anxiety-provoking situations are usually not as uncomfortable as we might make them out to be. Michelle could also adapt the procedure, or what she asks the family to do, by starting with relaxation skills instead of exposures for anxiety. After considering these various types of adaptations, Michelle decides to adapt her style. She believes that taking a client-directed approach will be seen as a sign of respect by Alejandra's mother. Michelle also thinks that adapting her approach could help her build rapport with Alejandra's mother and increase the family's engagement in therapy. After she has increased the family's engagement, she considers how she will then try adapting how she frames exposure therapy when presenting the approach to Alejandra's mother. Michelle thinks that if she and Alejandra's mother have a strong rapport, she can present exposure therapy again, but this time we'll discuss how the approach can help Alejandra to build confidence when she is separated from her mother. Michelle also thinks that she might also adapt her communication as she presents this new conceptualization by including an informational handout that includes testimonials by other families who have experienced success with exposure therapy. In response to concerns expressed by Alejandra's mother about exposure therapy, Michelle says, "I really want to pull from your expertise as Alejandra's mother. What seems to help her feel better about going to school or staying in her bed at night?" Alejandra's mother responds, well, she has a favorite stuffed animal that she likes to take to school, but I usually don't let her." Michelle asks, "Do you think anything would change during your mornings if she puts the stuffed animal in her backpack?" Alejandra's mother considers. "She has been asking me forever to take it to school, so I think at least at first it would help. She might not put up as much of a fight to go to school." Michelle responds, "Okay, I realize that it's not a long-term solution, but what if we start with Alejandra taking her stuffed animal to school for now, and we can work from there?" Alejandra's mother responds, "Okay, we can try that and see if it works." This is a great example of embracing diversity. Michelle appreciated that Alejandra's mother was concerned about the treatment plan and considered the various possible adaptations in her toolkit. She thought about how she might adapt the treatment process, such as adapting style, communication, or change agent. She also considered how she could adapt the treatment content by adapting the conceptualization, message, or procedures. She then selected an adaptation that she perceived to best address the family's concerns and implemented that adaptation in her next session. She also brainstormed additional adaptations that she will try once she has increased engagement with the family. That concludes this module on embracing diversity. As a recap, you reviewed that embracing diversity is a model for tailoring the process or content of services to fit the diverse characteristics of clients or contexts. You then learned the rationale for the development of embracing diversity, including that most interventions have been developed for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic societies. You heard that while most interventions are effective for the majority of clients, some clients may benefit from adaptations to the process or content of services. When indicated, adaptations can improve clients' engagement in services and response to treatment, and embracing diversity can help you be strategic about how to adapt services. Then, you heard about the types of process and content adaptations. Finally, you heard about some of the common ways that embracing diversity is used by providers, supervisors, and system administrators, as well as examples of effective and ineffective use of the embracing diversity model.